Washington, Mr. Newhouse is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on the topic of my special order.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, throughout the month of March, the Western Caucus has been highlighting the need for permitting reform in almost every aspect of the federal government. Permitting and regulatory reform have long been a priority for the Western Caucus and has become even more important in recent months. As our nation fights to reestablish energy independence, we need certainty for American energy producers and a reliable process for increased critical mineral mining. As catastrophic wildfires threaten the West year after year, we need permitting processes that empower state and local land managers to effectively manage our forests and our grasslands. As rural communities are faced with more and more federal overreach from the Biden administration, they deserve certainty and transparency. That is why we must reform our broken permitting processes to unlock American investment and unleash the potential of rural America. Landmark environmental protection laws like NEPA and the ESA have truly gotten out of control. While well-intentioned they're now used by serial litigants to stall critical infrastructure and management projects. These far-left environmental groups use the statutes to drive political wedges and ensure America is dependent on her adversaries. Endless cycles of litigation tie the hands of project developers, of land managers, and of private conservationists, all while posing a serious threat to both our local economies as well as our environment. As a farmer from the central part of the state of Washington and as chairman of the Congressional Western Caucus, I see how regulations from the federal government have disproportionately negatively impacted our rural communities. This is unfair for so many reasons, but the main one being that these are exactly the men and women that we should be empowering. In rural America, our livelihoods depend on a healthy environment and on our natural resources. We truly have a vested interest in and a storied history of protecting our lands and our waters. We just need the federal government to literally get out of our way. That's why House Republicans have introduced H.R. 1, the Lower Energy Cost Act, to deliver on our promise to unleash American energy and lower prices for all consumers, regardless of what industry they're engaged in. H.R. 1 updates our broken permitting process to actually let Americans mine, let Americans farm, let Americans manufacture, to process, and to build so that our country can grow and thrive once more. Today, I'm joined by Western Caucus members from across our country who will shed light on how broken the permitting processes throughout the federal government have kneecapped rural communities and how H.R. 1 can help resolve many of these challenges. In order to truly unleash American potential, we must reform our permitting processes, and we will continue to advocate for common sense policies that will do just that. As the preeminent voice for rural America on Capitol Hill, we have an expansive membership who have been on the front lines of the crafting of H.R. 1, our top legislative priority. We will continue to highlight the need for permitting reform to get more energy projects online and lower the cost to battle the inflation caused by the Biden administration's reckless agenda. Mr. Speaker, this evening, many of our members of the Western Caucus will be here participating. And I would like to ask the Speaker's indulgence to ask that Mr. Stauber from Minnesota would actually manage the time for our special order tonight. And with that, I'd like to yield to Mr. Stauber.
Yields back under the Speaker's announced policy of January 9th, 2023. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber, is recognized for the remainder of the hour as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to discuss the urgent need for permitting reform to secure America's energy future. H.R. 1, the Lower Energy Costs Act, will modernize our outdated permitting process for projects and allow us to unlock the full potential of America's energy and mineral resources. I want to discuss the mining provisions of H.R. 1, which includes my Permitting for Mining Needs Act. The district that I represent in northern Minnesota, Minnesota's 8th Congressional District, has 95% of America's nickel reserve, almost 90% of America's cobalt reserve, 75% of our platinum group metals, and more than a third of our copper, all of which are minerals needed for our energy security and mineral supply chains. It's unconscionable that a mining project in my district for these minerals is on year 20 of permitting and litigation. We have the resources and the workforce here in the United States. We just need the will, the political will to mine here. Whether it be mining oil and gas, wind or solar energy, we support all of the above and all of the best energy. But you can't have all of the above and all of the best without permitting reform. We also need permitting reform to build transmission lines, roads, bridges, and more. Take Dairyland Power's Cardinal Hickory Creek transmission line project in Wisconsin, for example. This 103-mile-long project is designed to put more wind power on the grid, but is currently locked in year 7 of permitting because just 1.3 miles of it is unlucky enough to touch federal land. This is simply unacceptable, and we can and must do better. If we want to establish American mineral independence and dominance and end our current reliance on the Chinese Communist Party, we must pass H.R. 1. And I yield. Now I would like to allow 2 minutes to my good friend, Representative Carol Miller from the great state of West Virginia.
Thank you. Today I rise in support of H.R. 1. H.R. 1, the Lower Energy Costs Act, is about increasing domestic production, permitting reform, reversing President Biden's anti-energy agenda, and streamlining energy exports. To be perfectly frank, the Biden administration has been putting out anti-energy policies since his first week in office. He shut down the Keystone Pipeline and halted permits for domestic energy production that we desperately needed. He drained our strategic petroleum reserves to try to stop the pain from his terrible policies, instead of coming up with real solutions. Just last night, he tweeted that electric cars are the future. I've never seen an administration so out of touch with the American people, which is exactly why these same people affected by anti-energy policies elected a Republican majority in the House of Representatives. In the majority, our first priority is to bring down energy costs and increase energy production. The Lower Energy Costs Act is just the first of many crucial energy policies I'm looking forward to seeing over the next 2 years. One of the pieces of legislation I'm looking forward to seeing is the completion of the Mountain Valley Pipeline. The Mountain Valley Pipeline is a great example of why permitting works and exactly why we need more of it. But in this project's case, the administration